Hello, everybody. Before you watch this Sunday morning movie, I wanted to say a few things that might help you make it through the movie. Number one, community hope grows. This is our theme for the season while we're away from our normal church worship and away from school and eating at Culver's and away from almost everything else. But just because we're not meeting together doesn't mean the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are not growing and redeeming us and our neighbors. As everybody has said for all time, the church is not a building. It's Christ in us, the hope of glory. Already lots of new things are blooming up all around. Number two, Lent is the season in the church calendar that marks Jesus' last week of life. Our church tradition, which is not very traditional, doesn't normally celebrate Lent very traditionally, but we do always focus on the events of Jesus' life that led to his death and crucifixion. It seems especially meaningful and deep to focus on Jesus' last days this week while we're exiled in our homes. And just speaking for myself, but maybe for you too, dealing with lots of fear, disappointment, and uncertainty. Number three, speaking of Lent and blooming, the idea of the movie that hopefully you're about to watch is that a lot of life seems brown. That is, it seems dead and depressing. The last week especially seemed long and was filled with disappointment. At times it seemed like life had left the building. Particularly last week, we suffered the loss of a beautiful person in our church. Casey Welter passed away last week on Sunday morning. His family held a small coronavirus restricted funeral on Friday. Casey was baptized at our church last October and shared a great story of how he discovered the grace and the salvation of Jesus Christ. It was an amazing day. It was a beautiful day, and his death last week was a shock. And for those who know him, including me, it was accompanied by anger, a lot of anger, sorrow, and grief. So please, if you knew Casey, and if you know Joe and Becky Welter, please pray for Casey's family and for those who knew him and love him. Also last week, if you looked out the window, it wasn't much encouragement. The trees, the bushes, everything seemed to match the mood of the country and the weekly closings and the reports of a disease literally gone viral. So I thought a movie about Brown would be appropriate, and to show how things are and how some things seem less than inspiring when you look at them. But I wanted to show that also behind and in and through all the brown, new life is coming. One pastor once preached a famous sermon titled, "It's Friday, but Sunday's Coming." This movie could be called, "It's Brown, but Green is Coming." I tried to show in the movie that even though things seem extremely brown, there's life in the green that's surely going to overtake the brown. Number four, someone might say, why did you show a hole in the ground in the movie? I did that because part of the sorrow that Jesus faced in his life was being totally displaced. Part of Jesus' suffering for us was dealing with a deep sense of dislocation. We're all probably feeling that. Asking, what happened to the life we once knew? Where is our comfort? Where does our help come from? Where do I belong now? What am I doing here? Jesus quoted a proverb saying, "Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Jesus knew what it was like to feel out of place. So when you see the hole in the ground in the brown dirt, you can realize that God knows, Jesus knows, the Spirit knows what it feels like to be lost and displaced. And no matter how out of it we might feel, we got to remember that Jesus can sympathize and heal and help no matter what. That's why I show the hole in the ground. Number 5, why do I show a milkweed pod? Because it's empty. Jesus was talking about his own death in John chapter 12, and he said, if a seed stays on the plant, it remains by itself alone. But if it falls to the ground and dies, the seed bears much fruit. That is, it multiplies over and over again. So I showed the empty milkweed pod that looks dead, but it actually has scattered and multiplied over and over and over again. And when the spring green comes, we'll see it alive like never before. It seemed like an apt picture to show a empty milkweed pod was a good illustration of how it feels now to be scattered as a church. But we got to believe that God is working new life, and he's going to multiply his life through us over and over again. I'm getting to the end. Number 6, why am I standing in the rain? I thought the weather reflected the mood and the reality of being caught in circumstances that seem bad, but also a reminder that God is in the rain with us. Jesus' passion, the events of his last week, his death, his crucifixion, his sacrifice, they were all, quote, bad, but obviously they turned life for us. They turned to grace and to joy, and they brought salvation to us. So standing in the rain, preaching a little sermon in the rain seemed appropriate to our lives together. Jesus is reigning in the rain. And finally, number 7, I apologize for the silliness of what some of you are about to watch. But I pray that in all of this, as one friend prayed for me over the phone on Friday, I pray that the joy of the Lord will be our strength. Hi, this is Larry here, and as you know, things are all shut down. So instead of having normal church, I wanted to talk to you today about the color brown. Hi, this is Larry out here. I'm in the forest, and I wanted to talk to you about some things that are brown. Okay, we're gonna go down here. We're gonna go down here and look at some things that are brown for a second. I don't know if you can see this, but right here, I don't know if you can see this at all. This is a brown leaf. Now, some people would say that this leaf is dead, and that it is dead. That's a dead leaf. Let's see what else. Let's see what else is brown. Here is a stick. A stick. In German, it would be Stück. Here's a stick, and it's brown. Get a good look at it. It's brown, and some people would say that this stick is dead. It is dead. It's a dead stick, and it's brown. Let's see what else we can see that's brown. Okay, we're coming downhill here through the forest a little bit. I don't know if you can see what I see in front of me. That is a tree that's fallen over, and it is color-wise, it's brown. And if you can see, now some people might say that this tree, because the branch broke off, some people would say that this tree in medical terms would be dead, and it is. This tree is brown and it is dead. Now we're coming up on something very interesting here. I'm going to give you a close-up, and I hope nothing comes tearing out of this hole here, but I don't know if you can see that. This right here, This is dirt, and it's brown dirt. Pretty good. Give you a good look at it here. That's brown dirt. But what's interesting right here is this dirt is here because there's this hole. Something lives in here. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a fox or a skunk. I'm not sure. But something lives in there. It's a hole, like a fox's hole, and you can get a good look at it there. And Jesus said, foxes have holes, and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's a lot of brown back here. A lot of brown trees, brown bushes. If you had to pick a word to describe these colors, I would go with brown. Now we're going to look at something else that's brown right over here, but it's a little bit different. Let's look at it. See this right here? This is brown, and this is interesting because this is an empty milkweed pod, and it's brown, and it's probably dead. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's it's dead now because I just ripped it off of the tree. But that's a milkweed pod. I just realized I said I ripped a milkweed pod off of the tree. It's not, milkweed pods don't grow on a tree. It's a plant. I ripped it off the plant. Just wanted to correct that. So I'm walking downhill again towards, I don't know if you can see it, this beautiful, beautiful big oak tree. And it's brown, dark brown color. And as we go down towards it, I was showing you a lot of things that scientists would call dead. But this tree is brown, but it's not dead. This is an awesome, not dead tree. And it seems brown and cold and forlorn out here today, but things are going to change. So I've been showing you a lot of brown stuff, and if you look here is a whole bunch of brown leaves. But I wanted to show you something here that you probably noticed already, which is right down here. And I said things are going to change. Well, look right here. This is actually green, and this is growing, and this is a sign of things to come. All right, so we've been looking at things that are brown and dead, and then we're also going to look at some things that are green. Now I'm going to show you something now that's brown and green. So come on down this way. I don't know if you can see this or not. This log is brown and it's dead, as we've been talking about. It also has some green on it. What's interesting here is the green is living off of the brown. Now I know some of you are saying, hey, that log is not dead. I just want to show you. It's easy to break a piece off. This is dead. Otherwise, I could never just pull it apart with my bare hands like that. But the green is living off of the brown. Okay, well, we're not in church. We're out here in the forest still. And I'm just gonna pretend like we're in church. And back there At the soundboard is John Musselman and Tim Collier on the sound. And over here to my left is the Cassville crowd. We got Marcus and everybody. And over here, yeah, hi Paul, hi Renee, sitting out there in the bushes together. And Ryan Genuine in the front here heckling as usual. So we're out here and it's Lent. And I think we would all agree this is the lentiest Lent we've ever had. Sometimes we have to imagine that what would it be like if bad things were happening like they were happening for Jesus at the end of his life. But this Lent, we don't have to imagine. There's enough bad things happening that we don't have to imagine. So it's very appropriate that we're talking about Lent, Jesus' last days, now. The good news is it ends with the resurrection. So keep that in mind. But there's a lot of brown and a lot of dead and dying things that happened to Jesus at the end of his life. And there's a double betrayal. Not only does Judas betray him, but Peter denies him. So he feels betrayed by, well, he is betrayed by two of his closest followers. It's a parallel betrayal. And if I can demonstrate that if I pick up a stick here. So you have Judas, who is one of Jesus' followers, that betrays him. So you have Judas's path. Then you also have Peter's. So in between these two betrayals, you have Jesus being betrayed by both of them. You have the deadness of the Jewish leaders who were trying to capture Jesus and were making up accusations about him. You have the deadness of the Roman Empire, which was willing to sacrifice an individual's life without a good inspection, without thorough evidence, in order to get rid of him. All of these things are coming together at the end of Jesus' life. I was also struck by, even when it talks about the resurrection of Jesus, it says that before and while Jesus was resurrected, they put a stone in front of the tomb. So not only did they have to deal with all the sadness of the death of Jesus, the betrayals of Jesus, but on top of it, they rolled a stone. It's really that feeling of, aren't things bad enough that you don't have to make it worse and accentuate it by rolling a stone in front? And then as I was reading it, it says at the end of Matthew, in Matthew 28, there was an earthquake, which there was just an earthquake in Utah. And we heard from my brother-in-law and his wife that their apartment in Utah was shaking because of an earthquake. So when people, there's a stone rolled in front, there's an earthquake, and it seems like things can't get any worse. And that was the backdrop for the resurrection. So I showed you a whole bunch of brown things, and I showed you a whole bunch of dead things. But then we also pointed to this little bit of green, which shows that there's life in the midst of all that's brown and seems dead. That's the season we're in. We're in the season of Lent, but we have the hope of the resurrection. So let's not give in to the brownness or the deadness, but let's put our hope in Jesus Christ and the resurrection from the dead. So take hope, everybody. Thanks, Paul and Renee. They're giving me a standing ovation over there. Thanks, Marcus. He's giving me a standing ovation, throwing flowers towards me. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a good Sunday. Bye-bye. Okay, I just want to remind everybody that while we're at home and we're not meeting, there's a few things we're hoping you could do. One is, if you're not on the Facebook group, please go to the Facebook group. We'll have updates every day. Somebody's writing a devotional to inspire you. And look, you can go to the YouTube channel as well. And if anybody you know is not online, you can try to get this to them in some format. So let's stay connected while we're on our break.